Hello and welcome to another episode of the World Class Real Estate Podcast, sponsored by Iceberg Digital. My name is Mark Worrell and I'm joined today by Mr. Ian Macbeth. How are you, pal?
All good, mate. Yeah, rocking and rolling. Busy at the moment. Very busy with general kind of meetings, actually. More kind of meeting up with different people, conversations all the time. So diary's busy, but everything's good, everything's good at the moment. So I say everything's good. We're going to talk about kind of the market a little bit in stock, because I think people would love to see more going into the pipeline. And obviously, we've had that monster quarter in Q1 of bankings. It'd be interesting to see how Q2 is going to shape up in terms of bankings. I know for us, April naturally was a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Still a profitable month, but not as much as you would have liked off the back of a really big kind of March. So, just looking at the kind of P&L, looking at ways to be more efficient as a business. And that's kind of kicked in a few more meetings in different areas to try and be a bit more strategic and a bit more efficient, really. But yeah, how about yourself? How are you?
That sounds very similar to my sort of morning, actually. We had a terrible April for bankings, and we wondered if it was because everything had kind of squashed into March. But actually, when we analysed it, we didn't sell a great deal around the Christmas period, and we're probably just paying the price for that a little bit now. But in terms of sales, pretty steady away. I think we've had some good weeks, we've had some average weeks. I don't think we've had any really, really bad weeks. But there is definitely a conversation worth having here about trying to move more of the stock from for sale to sold subject to contract. A lot of estate agents have got a lot of stock on the market. I regularly tell people that there's not been more houses on the market for any time for the last 10 years. And I think that means that estate agents are going to be busy anyway, even if they're not selling, just servicing the clients, as long as they are servicing the clients. So it'd be interesting to just have a conversation. And I know you've been looking at the stats behind it, but before you did that, how did you sort of view the turn from for sale to sold within avocado at the moment? I know you've got these stats that we'll talk through in a moment, but what was your sort of gut instinct on it?
Well, I kind of felt as soon as we saw that stamp duty holiday wasn't being renewed, and I think I said it on this podcast, I definitely said it to the avocado group, that as soon as March is finished, that we will see an extended summer. It was what I felt. I felt normally summer for estate agents is a little bit slower, a little bit quieter across July and August.
Yeah,
I felt that would kind of be extended from April all the way through to August. It doesn't mean stuff isn't happening. I just felt that we would see a very different year to where normally we would see slow one on bankings and stuff like that, slower 2, and then 3 and 4 is where we really kind of make our money. And this year I felt it would be 1 and 4 that we would make our money, and the middle chunk would be really tough. I don't mind the challenge, but that's what I've seen. I still think stuff is selling at a decent rate, and the statistics show that. The last, if we go 1st of March to 1st of May, 66.5% of stuff that's come to the market has gone under offer, or listing versus under offer. So, you take that, 2/3 of what comes to the market goes under offer. That's pretty positive for the country. But I do think that what we're still seeing is some of the same stuff that we were doing previously, even though the market has slightly changed. And that's why we wanted to do this podcast, to try and help those agents out there kind of recognize that a bit quicker so that we can react to it. But yeah, we had a lower bankings month in April compared to March. That was inevitable.
Yeah.
The good news is the pipeline is still there. So it's not lower because stuff's bombed out. It's just lower because it was a monster in March. And then most of the stuff that would have completed in April that we'd sold in December, like you said, in January, was fast tracked to make sure it hit the deadline. So it just brought everything forward. So, if we kind of look at it across a 4-month window, sort of almost January through to April, it looks fairly solid from a sort of average. But what we want to do is make sure Q4 and the start of Q3 is positive, and we're not sort of hit too much by the summer holidays, because I do think the summer holidays we will see quite a significant reduction in listings and in buyers, especially in the middle of the market. And I would think at the moment that most estate agents are also finding the stuff that they're selling is stuck in open chain pipelines across the country, bottom and top now, whereas before it was just top. Now it'll be bottom and top. So we've got the middle part wrapped up, but we're struggling to either close the top or the bottom or both in some cases. I don't know if you're finding something similar.
Not too much. It's a real source of frustration when when your chain does that. When that happens, when you have an open-ended chain, you've done your job, and then somebody in the chain hasn't done that. We've not seen that actually. What we've seen is, and I keep saying this to so many clients, we have seen such a price-sensitive market and also a dual market. So stuff that's coming on attractively priced, well presented, and well marketed is going pretty fast, and demand for that is high. There are, we're not seeing a shortage of buyers particularly, but if just something's wrong, then a property sits, then you face an uphill battle to try and actually get that converted to sold. There is definitely there's definitely a typical property market whereby if something's been on the market for 2-3 months or longer in many cases, buyers are not attracted to that because they think something's wrong with it. And that might just, it could be 10 grand on the price. That it could be that sensitive, and that's the market that we're seeing. My advice to a lot of our sellers at the moment is, price really realistically, price really, keen to generate the interest, because if you're motivated about selling, that's how you're going to get sold.
I do think as well, buyers have got a real disassociation with properties that are listed on the portals as reduced. Like talking to a lot of buyers, they've got a real negative. It's almost one of the things that they look at. It's kind of like photo price. Has it been reduced? And if it has, it's a scroller. They'll scroll past it for some reason. Even if it's a good price, if it's had the reduction, it's really got a negative stigma to it now in the buyer's mind. Definitely down here anyway. More so than before, because people used to look at it and go, "Oh, it's been reduced. They must be motivated."
Yeah.
Whereas now they kind of go, "Oh, it's been reduced. It must be shit." Yeah. And it kind of it's a funny one, isn't it? It's like the psyche changes over time, and we're kind of almost now resilient to certain adverts in certain areas, or on Google you scroll past the first 4 because they're sponsored or whatever it may be. Now it seems like buyers have got the same thing with reduce. So I think if you're listing with a view that you're going to have to reduce it to sell it, I think you're actually screwing yourself over a little bit, and definitely the seller. Some of the statistics back that up actually on the pricing as well. I looked at the average pound per square foot. So, you can call that the average price if you want. It just shows up on the 20A data that I was looking at as that statistic. And if we look at what it sits at the moment, 402 pounds is the average pound per square foot across the country. You would think that where we are at the moment, that it'll probably be the same for kind of 1st of February back to 1st of October, or if anything, it should be a little bit lighter than that now, as we're kind of in a slightly different market, but it's quite significantly higher. 377, so 6.6% increase in property prices at the moment compared to just a few months ago when the market was really popping. And by I say popping, again, the statistics show that 74.3% of properties were going under offer that were listed in that same time slot of October to February versus the 66.5 now. So we're selling 8% less of what we listed, and we're pricing 6.6% higher than what we were doing previously. The seesaw doesn't work. It's like a broken, It's a broken metric for the industry. And as we were talking off camera as well, are we doing anything different? Withdrawals and price reductions statistically are identical. 53% of what we list, we reduce versus 52%, 42% in the last 2 months of withdrawals, and 44% previously. So like for like. So basically we're not doing anything different, but we're pricing higher, and 8% less is selling. The data doesn't lie, as they say.
Well, we're pricing higher at a time when it costs buyers more to transact as well. That doesn't make a great deal of sense. And when you look at it like that, it explains, the less percentage of sales. So it just comes down to price. And actually, we didn't we didn't know the data before we looked at it at the start today, but you probably could have had a decent guess, and it would have been exactly that. Some of the stuff that we see come on the market at the price, you just think there's just no chance. And then you're absolutely right what you said about buyers' views on reduced stock. It's just not there. There is not a demand. It's almost tainted. And sellers that say, "Oh, well, you can go down, you can never go up." I would say that's never been, never been a bigger falsehood in this market, because that going down just costs you tens of thousands of pounds. But clearly agents, and this is, across the country, this data, clearly agents are pricing stuff higher now than they were before the stamp duty holiday, because these are asking prices. So why do you think that is? It's not, just the seasonal, are people happier in spring and maybe a little bit less pushy on the price? Is there less motivation because people think that now is the time of year to move and they can can push the price a little bit more? It doesn't, it doesn't make any sense to me, really.
Yeah, I think when more listings are coming to the market, it's easier to win business. And when you've gone out there with a view of, right, let's get our stock up because we've sold a lot, because the data says we were selling 3 out of every 4 that we listed. So people wanted more on the market to sell. Then you go out there with your classic estate agent sort of strategic, you call it, across the corporates, the big independents, the self-employed online. It's the same approach for a lot of people. Is they'll go out and go, I need to get some more stock on the market, need to get some more boards up. And as a result, we go out there and we go, yeah, I'll try it at that price.
Yeah.
If it's selling at 380 and 2 other agents have valued it to market at 400, and the seller says, look, I want to go with you, but can we try it at 400? How many people actually turn around and go, nah, I wouldn't take it at 400. It's 380 or nothing. Because most agents won't. There are really good ones that do, but most agents won't, because what they know is, because you've priced it at 380, if those 400 prices sign it up with a 16-week contract, after 6 weeks, if it's not moved, you go, let's try it at the 380 price now. And the seller goes, yeah, my gut feeling did say that. They've got 2.5 months, 2 months left of contract at your price, the right price, to get it shifted. It goes in their pipeline, and you look at it and go, well, what is good agency in that situation? Is the ultimate question. That's where it comes tough. And I think that's probably what we've been finding over the last maybe 6, 8, 10 weeks, something like that across the board. I'm generalizing here, don't take offense if that's not you, but that's the general industry, right?
Yeah, and I think you are exactly spot on. And it's very difficult as an agent to say no to that sort of business, but because there is also the unknown as well. You might say it might be 380, but then there is a chance they could sell it at 400. Maybe less of a chance in this market than for a couple of years, and then they might not sell it at 380 either. That would be the risk that I would be talking to them about. I would be talking to them about the Rightmove stats in terms of how much longer it takes a reduced property to sell, how much more likely it is to fall through. It's 50% more likely to fall through if it's been reduced. I mean, it's a staggering stat, that.
Yeah. It's why I think when that happens, to put your balls on the table, your lady nuts or your male nuts on the table, and go, actually, I'm going to say no to that. But the advice I'm going to give you is, if you want to try at 400 at one of those other agents' price, just sign a 4-week contract.
Yeah.
Do not sign the long contract. And really, the rest of that telephone call for the next 10 minutes should be explaining why that's important.
Yeah.
Because what happens then is you give it to the other agent ultimately, because they've said they want to use you, but you give it to them and say, don't reduce the price because they've said 400. Sign for a month. All they're going to do is slap it on Rightmove, take some photos. And if they put their money where their mouth is, right, and they get it right, because most buyers are found for listings at the moment that do sell in that first month, then you win. And I'll be really happy for you, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And I'll be happy for the agent as well, because they beat me and they beat me fair and square. But if they don't, serve them notice, come back to me, we'll do a proper marketing campaign, we'll relaunch it at the price that we think it will move. And then your dream and your goal and your aspiration to go and do whatever the next step is can be hopefully realized, but at least you're not thinking what if, and that I'm fine with, and I think a month comes around bloody fast. And if you get that listing on at the right money, let's say 9 times out of 10, if you can have that educational call correctly and you stay in contact, and you're going to get that back, right? But you're going to get it back, and you're going to be able to do some business with it rather than not. And even if you only get a third of those back because they end up just sitting with them because it's easier, well, fine. You're listing better quality, and that's what you want, isn't it? Really, is the profit.
Yeah, and that's really good advice to agents. But actually, as an agent giving out that advice, that's really great advice to your client, because you're trying to protect them. You're showing them that you understand, because I never really blame the client in this, because they don't do it all the time. And actually, 20 grand's a lot of money. So I can always understand why, if they're being told by a professional, oh, we think we could get you this, then, that's an itch that you've got to scratch for many people. But actually, if you put it the way that you did and put a time limit on it, if the first agent is confident enough to sell it, then they'll do a 4-week contract or a 0 days contract, whatever conversation the client has with them. But like you say, you've got to take the time and invest the time, because it's dead easy just to go, all right, okay, good luck then, because that's the easy conversation to have. Well, actually, the easier conversation to have is, I'll take it. But if you're not going to take it, then the easy conversation is, oh, yeah, okay, good luck then. But actually, if you can set that up as your sort of backstop, you'll also benefit the client, because they're not going to be showing as reduced on Rightmove. And back to your earlier point of buyers' view on that, the buyers will probably have a good idea, but new buyers coming into the market might not have such a good idea that it was on the market at 400,000, last month. So I think that's really good advice for sellers when they are being told different prices.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the right thing to do in this market. It's a more difficult conversation, but normally that means you get a better result. What little bits do you and the team look at, or over the years have you always looked at from, let's say you got it on, you thought it was well priced, and that's the case at the moment, 6 weeks down the line, you think, I thought that one would have been under offer by now, but it isn't. What sort of stuff do you and the team look at to try and almost make the stock from for sale to sold subject to contract?
I think there's a big conversation that we would always have around clients' motivation. So if clients say to us words like, oh, we're not in a rush, then I think it's our job to actually challenge that view, because the we're not in a rush can actually damage your price a lot. They might say, oh, we're not looking to change the price because really we don't want to move till Christmas, or something like that. And I've always said to my clients, and encourage the team to have the conversations with their clients as well, that actually just being sat on the market at the wrong price can damage your overall campaign and damage your overall results. Mm-hmm. So actually finding out and having those conversations with clients around their motivation is really important. And in this market, another thing that we would always do is, and it's kind of related to their motivation, but we're talking to them a lot about their onwards move, what they're looking for. It doesn't matter if it's out of area or what have you, making sure that they are actively pursuing their onward plans, because that increases their motivation, and also making sure that we're offering to negotiate on their onwards, because it's, for quite a lot of people, it's not about the price they get, but actually about the changeover cost. So we have those conversations a lot with clients, and I think that is just taking the time to really get to know your clients to be able to help them with their goals.
Yeah, it's a really good point, especially reminding the client of their goal, because I do think, especially if it's gone like 8 to 10 weeks and that house is still on the market, what the experience I've found with sellers in that situation that often happens is they come on, they're really motivated, they want to upsize, they want the bigger garden and the playroom or whatever it may be with the family. They're really driven, and you kind of say, right, let's get yours under offer. And naturally what happens is next day they're scrolling Rightmove for like 6 hours. You know, Dexter's on pause. They're both on the sofa, like really scrolling Rightmove. They see a couple, they view a couple, they fall in love with a couple, but they lose those properties because they're not sold. And then
Yeah.
after a month, they're a bit disheartened. After 8 weeks, they're not viewing. They're probably not really looking at Rightmove that much. Dexter's back on Play, and they just lose a bit of drive. And if you remind them what the goal is, the motivation comes back, so you can re-energize them. I've always done something very similar, which is just a really simple kind of 1, 2, 3 stock audit. I score the motivation of the stock out of 1 to 3. So 3 is like super motivated. 1 is not really, probably shouldn't really be on the market. And 2 is like, they are driven, but I wouldn't say they're like highly gung-ho motivated. And then I'll go to the sort of comparison score and look at them versus price. So 3 is, they're the best 3-bed terrace in that area price wise, or 2 is they're kind of sat in there, or 1 is they are fucking overpriced, these guys. And then what the demand score is. So again, 1, there's not a lot of people actually looking for that sort of property. Could be whatever. Or 3 is these are selling. I don't know why this one's not selling. And kind of what you normally find is you've got like 20% in the 1s, 20% in the 3s, 60% in the 2s. And can we get more of the 2s into 3s? And the 3s are our next pipeline. That's the way I was. These are next month's deals. So what do we do to work on those 3s? Because especially if you've got one that's got 2 3s on it. And that was kind of my stock audit, just in its really simple term. If you start scoring it higher, like doing it out of 5 or doing it out of 10, it doesn't split it as sort of cleanly as you need. So 1 to 3. And that means you can then work on those real motivated sellers. Might be a home visit, might be a Zoom call gets booked in, and we do a bit of work to then redo the marketing ultimately, and maybe redo the price at the same time. You know, let's reprice it, remarket it, or let's at least remarket it with a view of, if that doesn't work, we have to reprice it. Sort of 1-2 step process that works quite nicely for me. And if you do get to the remarket, a lot of agents be thinking on the call, what is the next step after that? This is a bit of a random one. I don't know what the analogy obviously came to me when I was in my 20s, when I was full of testosterone and thinking,
I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. But I've always said with marketing, put the property in its underwear is the kind of the visualization, if you like, of what we're looking at. Don't show off too much, and do show off what they could have.
Yeah.
So that's the way I look at it. Everyone looks better in underwear than naked typically, right? So do the same with the house. That's what you're trying to achieve, is get the property not over marketed, not too many photos, don't give too much away, but get it looking tip top so that people want to see a little bit more. And that's what
you don't have to have 34 photos on a Rightmove listing for the property to stand out. You've got to remember that this is, I think of it as our shop window now. This is our shop window. So you wouldn't put 34 photos in your shop window for one property, would you? Going back to the 90s, let's say. But you might put sort of 6 to 8. That's really where I think Rightmove should be used and should be used best. It also then gives you the chance to remarket it, as you talked about. And I think one of the best questions that you can ask your clients in terms of price is bag of money on the table today. They're on the market at 550, say. That offer is 510. What's your thoughts? And actually just role playing an offer scenario with a client. I've done quite a lot in recent years and often been surprised at their answers. So don't think because they're on the market at one price that they're not considering another price. And I think if you can actually, particularly if you can get in front of them face to face and you can have that conversation and really sort of what they would have said in terms of when I was a financial advisor, was they called it disturbing the client, like really testing the motivations. And actually, if you can frame it right and have a good relationship with your client, then you can often find that they would be willing to accept a price that you maybe didn't expect them to. And therefore, if they're on the market higher than that price and their motivation is high and the rest of the property is well presented and well marketed, etc., then actually it's price that needs to change, and quite often that will lead to them actually being able to achieve the goals.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we have a responsibility that if the seller is prepared to reprice, it's their money. It's not ours, really. It's their money that they're looking to increase the chance of finding a buyer by reducing 10, 20, 25, 30, 50 grand, whatever the number is. So we then have a responsibility to not just do that with the same marketing literature and that price. We have that responsibility to say, well, let's change the angle of the front shot at least, and okay, the sun is out now, but when we were marketing this, it was orange leaves, whatever the scenario is. We have a responsibility to not just make the price stand out, but make the property stand out as a different listing in reality as well. And I think we can be a bit lazy with that, even just front shot. Even if it's seasonal and, you change the price 6 weeks later, nothing's really changed in the season. But when you do the take on, when you do the listing, always get 3 angles, for that reason. You might not even change the price, but you go, actually, we took it with the garage being 30% because we wanted to show the big driveway and the double garage because we know that's what, but actually we're going to change the angle now and we're going to show off the depth of the right hand side of the house and show how deep this house is so that people can really see it. Or we're going to take the drone shot, to the 5th image and actually just put the big character image on or you get a drone shot, whatever the thing is. But I think that's our responsibility as well, is to try that and put the property in its underwear. How can you make it look the best it can possibly look with people wanting to see a little bit more?
Yeah, and I think just to go back to one of your points before we wrap up as well about your audit idea, I think one of the things that we've done when we felt that we've not been turning stock into pipeline perhaps as effectively as we could do is we sit down as a whole team and everyone critiques everyone else's properties. So that's something that I think we could probably do more of, because often when you sat looking at this property and it's been on the books for 12 weeks and you're starting to get a little bit sick of the sight of it, you actually become a bit blind to maybe some things that might be appearing in the marketing, or something that you may have missed, or something that could be changed in the description, whereas actually a fresh pair of eyes can often just give you that, and then that can be the thing that actually gets the sale. So don't underestimate getting together with colleagues and actually critiquing. It depends obviously how your business runs, and maybe everyone's got an input into it right from the start, but typically one person will prepare the listing and then another person can actually offer some constructive criticism to try and get that property sold, because also that's what your rival agents are going to be doing.
And in every line of business, in every industry of business, whether it's airlines, whether it's a type of food that you get on direct debit, every line of business, your best client is your existing client. And as estate agents, we're so focused on new business. Just don't forget the client's using you for a reason, because they liked you and you listed it for a reason. So put a bit more effort into the existing clients before you start looking at the new business and getting excited with the new business, because that's where we can make the difference. And there's enough to go around, and we've got enough. The stock levels show that. So audit it, do a little bit more with your existing clients, because they're your best clients. They're with you for a reason. So put your time and energy into them first, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we know what we're going to call the podcast after your underwear analogy. So as you know, we do this because we love our industry. We want to see it improve and get better. If you have enjoyed today's episode, or you've implemented any of the tips that we've suggested, please reach out, share this out on social media. I'm Mark Worrell. Here's Ian Macbeth. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you to Iceberg for their sponsorship, and we will see you again next week.